Welcome to the Built to Win podcast, show about entrepreneurs, their journeys, how they turn their dreams into reality. Today, I have one of the founding members of MySpace, of LowerMyBills.com, which was sold to Experian, and a member of multiple companies that he took public. My guy, Ted Dhanik.
What's going on, Brian?
On the show, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There we go. Finish it off.
Let's go.
So basically what we do on the show is kind of have a conversation about where it all started, everything in between, and where you are right now. So let's go back to the beginning. Where you from?
I'm from India.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't expecting that one.
Yeah. Yeah. You seen, Slumdog Millionaire, the kid that falls in the ground in the toilet? That was me. Just kidding. No. No, but yeah, I was born in India. I came real early. Well, I was about a month old when I came to the U.S. Spent my first 9 years in Texas.
Okay.
Really tough time there. It was a lot of racism. It was pretty hard, and then I ended up in kind of like all over the country and spent my adolescent years in Silicon Valley. And I moved to LA around 2000, so I've been in West Hollywood for about 23 years now.
Okay. So let's start there. India to Texas. I grew up in Indiana, families from the South, so I know a little bit about that. What was your experience in Texas, and what part of Texas were you?
So I lived in Houston, Texas. It was I was pretty young when I left. I was like 9 years old, and so it was, it wasn't too bad, but that's where I learned how to fight.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of racism,
Yeah.
stuff like that. That's around the time I changed my name.
Okay.
So I'm changing it back though.
I like it. So what was your name prior?
So my real name is Tej. That's what my parents named me.
Okay.
And my the name I changed it to was Ted because these kids were just, like destroying my name, as a kid, and I'd get into a lot of fights for that and stuff. So I changed it myself actually. And then when this new book releases in Q1 of next year, that's when my name comes back to what it was originally.
Yeah, back to who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day. Yeah, so one of those things I can relate to the name thing. My last name is Murdoch, and you're about the same age as me, so it was right at the time of MacGyver, 18, and Murdoch was the crazy guy.
Yeah.
So that was me.
I watched MacGyver, yeah. And Airwolf.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So you go from Houston, you're building up obviously a little bit of resilience. You said you learned how to fight, so you're getting physically tougher, you're getting mentally tougher. As you go to Silicon Valley, how does that change in terms of your journey, and how do people receive you, being in a place with people with, most would say, higher intellect?
Yeah, so, it was a good place for me to be because there's a lot of ambition. And around the dot-com boom in the 90s, I was kind of at the right place at the right time. I was going to school, and I was also working at the same time, so I had a lot of jobs in tech, and I was starting off in sales and stuff like that, and marketing, and it kind of just climbed the ladder and grew and just continued to excel in that. My career in tech was mostly in business development and sales. So I started working for companies that were popular around the time, and then some of the kind of dot-com boom, they disappeared, and then eventually ended up at some places that did well. There was a company called NextTag that I was one of the early guys at. I was responsible for a product there that was specifically modeling after a competitor called LendingTree. So we built a lead generation platform for consumer lending, specifically in single-family residential homes, so refi and home purchase and stuff like that. And so we were selling those leads to mortgage brokers. That business got pretty big. I built that business there. Eventually, the company sold for a couple $2 billion, and then that was much later than I left earlier than that. And then I joined a startup in LA called LowerMyBills.com. I was one of the early guys there. We built that business, kind of copying LendingTree as well, at Lower My Bills, and we had $1 million a day revenues, and it was pretty big. And then we sold it to Experian a few years later, and then MySpace just kind of happened. That was really fun.
So that's interesting. One of the things that I tell a lot of kids, for those who watch, and if you didn't know, like, because I grew up in a, most people call underserved area, but in a neighborhood with kids where a lot of opportunities are not presented to you, put it that way. we created sales and marketing for alternative career pathways. And you talked about you were in tech and in tech sales.
Sure.
So talk to that, because a lot of people are on this mindset of, if I don't go to college, then I'm pretty much asked out.
Sure.
But you're in sales. So what does that look like in tech sales?
Yeah, so originally I was selling software, right, in the mid '90s, and there was a lot of software companies and .coms, and some of them did well, and some of them fell apart, and so I was selling enterprise software, so I had a very specific specialty. Started off in a call center, selling software, like one of my first jobs, and then, and then eventually just kind of kept growing every couple of years, just changed jobs and just grew. And you kind of have to leave a company to to get a bigger position, and I kept doing that stuff, and around that time there was a lot of momentum out there, right? So there was less people than the demand was really high for talent, and so I was in the right place at the right time, which was fantastic. But if you look at it from the outside perspective, everybody knew where the activity was. Like, everyone in the country knew Silicon Valley was on fire, right? So I could have lived in Chicago, I could have lived somewhere else, and just watching the news, you would know that place is on fire, right? So there's a lot of activity there. So a lot of opportunity there, and I felt like the opportunity was so much bigger in the Silicon Valley at the time than it was in it was in like Los Angeles and other places. So I just happened to be there, but for anyone else, they could have just figured that out and just could have showed up in Silicon Valley, and by osmosis, they would have ended up in a winning situation. So where I'm kind of going with this is, I was at the right place at the right time, but how you can replicate that, if you're not at the right place at the right time, if you're informed well enough, you could put yourself in the right place at any time.
Correct.
You just have to figure out what's going on. You have to listen, and you just have to know what's going on and what's hot.
Yeah, and so that's really having awareness
Sure.
of what's going on around you. So I like that. What was your mindset in your mind at this moment? What do you believe set you apart from the other people that you worked with to understand, okay, I need to keep leveling up? Obviously, I know you personally, so I know that
Sure.
that's a big thing about you is growth.
Yeah.
So what was in your mind is like, I've got to level up from where I am right now to get to the next step?
So I think at a pretty early age, I was kind of conditioned. My dad is a voracious reader, and he would give me these books to read. I read the Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, all this stuff. I read kind of everything that they wrote, and so I understood something pretty early that a lot of people don't get, which is, if you want to succeed at something, you just have to find a person that's already done it and replicate them, right? So that's kind of like my mantra. It's like, I'm a fast follower. I learn things by watching other people do them, and I might do them a little bit better than they do, And so essentially, I'm pretty good at fast following. I've never been a pioneer. I'm not one to pave roads. It's too expensive, So like, I'll figure out what's going on, and fast follow quickly. So like, my mindset has always been like, I've always been on the lookout for what's happening and what can I do. What learnings can I leverage from other people that are doing it right now? They've spent a bunch of money trying to figure it out. Let me jump into that, and into that space and figure it out. Now, how this is relevant to like what we're doing. So Lower My Bills was a company that we sold to Experian, but we copied LendingTree. Company before that, NextTag, was a consumer shopping engine. It was kind of like Price Grabber. It was doing Price Grabber like stuff, and then I said, hey, we're selling leads, basically, fundamentally. Why don't we just copy LendingTree's crushing? LendingTree's doing $500 million in revenue. Why don't we do something like that? We're a lead engine. Let's just copy them. And we did that. We crushed it, MySpace. Everyone thinks MySpace was the first social network. You guys can think that. It's fantastic. However, it was Friendster that was doing it first. And so we just figured out, we fast-followed Friendster, figured out what the deficiencies are, and crushed them, And so that's kind of what we did. And then I did the same thing in the first company that I took public, and the second one too. So I am always kind of in that place where just like, I need to figure out what's going on out there and copy. I don't want to be a pioneer. Now, a lot of people are really good at being pioneers, like Steve Jobs and so many other guys, I just I'm not built that way. Yeah.
All right, I like it. So let's kind of fast forward from there. And I love the mindset of that. you are now, let's stop, at MySpace. So you've done a couple things. You're at MySpace. Like you said, you're a fast follower. What are the things that you saw at Friendsters? You said, hey, these are things that we can leverage and we can move a lot faster and do big things.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. So Friendster was very limited. You were only allowed to have 500 friends, which is crazy. So some of the people that were most active on Friendster were like Tila Tequila and, Forbidden and all these girls that were, super popular there. So, we just talked to them. We said, hey, what are the things that you are, missing, and like why, do you not like this platform, and they told us, we need more photos, we need unlimited followers, we need, all this stuff. And so we built that into there, and it just took off. It was basically, and we used them to promote it. So they basically were promoting MySpace on Friendster. So it's like, it was fantastic, and so, just kind of be receptive, receptive to opportunities. And I think that's a really big part of it, is just listening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So as you're moving forward, what is the first company that you took public, and how did that process happen?
Sure.
A lot of people think about taking a company public. You've done it a couple times.
Yeah. So that's a pretty interesting place. So I look at, like, I'm like this brown kid, basic guy. I wear clothes from Japan, and I'm just like this, you meet me out, I'm wearing beads, like I'm just a regular dude, I'm not like, I'm not like Steve Jobs or anything like that, But the thing is, how does this, like, a basic person like that figure that out, right? And so it's as again, it just kind of fits into the whole mindset and philosophy of, like, I need to find a person that knows how to do something that I want to do, and offer them some value, and they'll teach me how to do it, right? So I figured out. So I left MySpace in 2000. We had an earn out that ended in 2008, and all of us left, right? MySpace was falling apart at the time because Rupert Murdoch destroyed it. He put a hiring freeze on us immediately after acquisition. We couldn't sustain the growth. There's a lot of spam and too many ads and all this stuff going on. That was a result of his decisions. So 2008 was time for us to leave, and they wanted to renew our contracts, and we said, no, we're done. This is falling apart. We want to go. So we left. Now, I left with the blessing of management to start a company to service MySpace. So I built a business to help MySpace make some sense out of this nightmare of ads. It had 7 billion ads a day. They're going under-monetized. And so I said, hey, I'm going to build a technology to monetize this or mediate this, all this, there's going to be a lot of money here, so, and a lot of value. And if I do it well with MySpace, I can have, like CNN and news, like all these other news sites and, weather.com and all these other players, right? So we started the company, and no capital, zero. I partnered with my CTO, who wrote all the code. We had a handful of people, and we started doing $1 million a month in revenue within the first 3 months, profitable from the gate, and just crushed it, kept going. Within 6 months, we had the top 500 publishers on the web, 500 ComScore publishers like CNN, weather.com, AccuWeather, like Dictionary, like all of them.
Yes.
And then, it just kept growing organically and didn't really have an exit in sight, just wanted to run a business that didn't have an outside board, VCs or private equity or any of that. We ran the thing, we owned the whole thing,
Yeah.
And it was super profitable. Ran it from like 2009 until 2017 without any outside capital, zero, and just crushed it, did hundreds of millions in revenue. And then I said, you know what, like, let's start growing, let's start acquiring. So 2016, I started acquiring. There's an LA Times article about us or me. So I went on a $100 million acquisition spree, started acquiring tech companies. And the interesting thing is, LA Times didn't mention how much money I was paying for them. They didn't mention it about the cash component at all, right? So the thing is, I was actually buying these companies with zero cash. I was buying them with no cash. I was buying them by selling them a dream. They would just hand me the keys to the company. They'd hand me the companies. And these were good companies, right?
Yeah.
So I sold them a dream. I got really good at selling dreams, and it was through a mentor. He taught me this game, and it was really crazy. So I had a private vehicle. My company was private. I was issuing stock from my private company to all these guys whose companies I was buying. I was giving them shares in my company. So I was doing a roll-up with just private stock, no cash, which is really a kind of a difficult thing to do. The dream I was selling was that we're going public. We're going to file an S1. We're going to go public on NASDAQ. You know, that's what we're going to do. How I learned how to sell this dream was there's a gentleman by the name of Robbie Lee. Robbie Lee's a really interesting character. He was the only Korean Jew I know, and he's super racist. I think he's just joking, though. I don't think he's actually racist, but he's super funny. Anyways, so I came across Robbie Lee through some friends. Robbie Lee was looking for a marketing agency, and we were kind of in his space, and they said Robbie needs, guys to market this very specific thing, and we're the guys that kind of fit that profile. So I became very close to Robbie by providing him a bunch of value in the digital media world. I learned what Robbie had done. Robbie had done something really incredible. Robbie took a dry cleaning roll-up public. It was the biggest dry cleaning roll-up in history. It was called U.S. Dry Cleaning. U.S. Dry Cleaning Robbie was running around buying mom and pop dry cleaning operations around the country with no cash, and he's selling them a dream, right? He was issuing private stock in this private company to all these guys, and they're just handing them over their businesses in exchange for this dream. They're all going to go public, right? He did really well, and I said, how did you do this, Robbie Lee? And Robbie Lee explained the whole thing to me, and his confidence is like insane, and because he's done it, and his confidence backs up what he has done. Exactly. He's not only done this once, but he's done this several times. He's done other roll-ups too, without any cash. It's kind of like these are the guys that get stuff done, and I was around him, and I learned this from him, and there's something ended up in my head. I didn't think about going public at the time. I said, I got to go public. He said, the only way you're going to create real generational wealth is by going public. And these guys that actually do it. It's really insane. But he's going to say, he gave me a disclaimer. He said, there's very few guys in the world and in history that have taken companies public. It's a very, very specific talent, and it's very hard to do. So I said, okay, I want to be one of those guys. I want to figure out how to do this. I got really inspired, and I started figuring it out, and I dissected the whole thing, and figured out all the components, and I arrived at, it's not hard. It's super easy, but there's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of accountability. Now, the problem with a lot of these guys out there that are trying to do stuff like this is they don't have the accountability. Yeah. Accountability is critical. You got to be accountable to everyone else before yourself. And many of these guys are just not built this way. Anyways, so I figured out how to do it, and along the way, not only did I learn how to buy companies without any cash, but I also learned how to take companies public. So I've done that. I've taken 2 of my own companies that I founded public, and then I've also helped and advised and been on boards of several other public companies. So it was hard to do. We ended up, by the time we ended up being ready to be able to file our S1 here in the U.S., our comps fell apart. So in our industry, there's 2 companies that are trading on the NASDAQ. Their valuations fell to shit. 2016 was a weird time. And then so we were ready to go public, and it's like, hey, we can't do it here in the U.S. because these companies are trading at 10.10 times their revenue. So like a tenth of their revenue. Oh, wow. So if you have 100 million revenue, it's trading at 10 million. Yeah. But when we started the process, they were trading 20 times revenue. Yeah. So 100 million, they're worth 2 billion. So we're like, yeah, this is what we want to do. And then, by the end of it, it's like, it's not worth it. So my CFO at the time had taken a couple companies public in Australia. And so he said, okay, let's make some calls. So we took some calls. 3rd call, all of the money was committed. We raised all the money before even raising the money. So we said, okay, we're going to go public in Australia. Let's do it. So we got a good valuation. It was like 5 times revenue or something like that at the time, and we ended up doing it. It was hell, though. It was really tough. I don't recommend Australia to my worst enemies, but it was very, very difficult. But we learned a lot in the process. And then the second company I ended up doing this with was in Canada. It was a company called Lotto Gopher, and it was the only way you could legally buy lottery tickets online. And so ended up selling that after it went public. Sold it off a while back, and so that was the public company world. But yeah, it's like learning from the people that have done things. So like I have a book coming out, and I love Built to Win because my book is called Winning by Osmosis, and it's the practical guide to winning, and it talks about how to change your mindset, not just tell you, hey, change your mindset, but no, it's actually showing you exactly how to do it. But one of the things, about this is the osmosis of winners is so infectious that you will accidentally win by being around winners.
Correct.
Right? And
Agreed.
so that's the thing. And that's how I've always been. I've always accidentally won. It's never been deliberate. It's just because I'm around true, real winners, and I have this unique talent, and I only have one talent. My talent is finding good people, very specifically winners, and putting them together. That's the only talent I've always had, And so I think that, the osmosis of this, finding Robbie Lee, everyone else that's come along the way, my talent is finding them, and, and just being around the right people with the ideas. Those ideas would never have come to me. Buying companies without cash, taking a company public, I'd never been around that, it came through osmosis.
Yeah, I love it. That's amazing. So we'll talk more about that later on, that osmosis. You said that's first quarter?
First quarter.
I like it. All right, so we take the companies public. That's 2019, 2020?
2017.
2017.
Yeah.
Okay. So after your little break, one of my buddies sold his company for a significant chunk of change, and so you take a little break, a month, 2 months, but someone who's driven, you still want to drive.
Sure.
So what's next?
Yeah, so we took it public, and then I stayed on for a long time. I exited about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. The public company life was real rough, They'd write articles about me, like this guy driving around in a $2 million Bugatti. It's so crazy. Yeah. And then they short my stock the next day. Yeah, so it's it was wild. I'm happy to be out of it. Yeah. You see how calm I am every time you see me. Yeah. I'm pretty calm. And one of the reasons why I'm so calm is because of this, having all this anxiety being public for so long, and then not, and then just calm, it's like so different, So yeah, what's next? So I launched another tech company around the time I left. It's focused on connected television, so it's ads on smart TV, very specifically, like the app stores on Samsung TV, LG TV, all the Apple TV and all the other platforms. There are app publishers there, and there's a lot of freemium, basically, streaming apps, and there's lots of content, millions of hours of content, and basically, these app producers are monetizing it through ads. Now, the ads that you see on that television screen look identical as what you see on linear television, like the same type of commercial, but the difference is you can target it to a user, behavioral target it. You could also track the performance of it, so you get a QR code and things like that. You can track that. So an advertiser, when they buy that type of media, they can actually see how it performs, Like it's kind of like, how it used to be on the web and stuff. But TV forever has been like phone numbers and weird stuff like that. You can't really track the performance of TV. But this is like another world, right? So it's really good. So I have that, and I have a short-term rental portfolio, a bunch of passive income properties, and they're generating a bunch of revenue and trying to get that to some real scale now, opening up a few other markets like Tulum. We got Los Angeles, Tulum, Miami, a couple other places soon. So we have about 25 of them now. We're trying to get that to 100 the next 2 years. So that's growing. And then I have a credit repair agency. So we reverse engineer credit repair in early 2000. When we sold Lower My Bills to Experian, we're trying to figure out how to monetize the shit paper leads, like the D paper leads, what we call like bad credit leads. So we get like people trying to buy houses and refinance their homes, but they don't qualify because they have really bad credit, right? So we have a shitload of those leads back then. What do we do with this stuff? So we're selling it to credit repair agencies at the time. And they were buying it, they were gobbling it up so fast. They're spending so much money and they're buying it. So I got really interested, said, hey, I need to figure out credit repair because there's got to be a huge business here. So we had a relationship with Experian, and so we kind of reverse engineered all of it. And so we have a credit repair agency for about 18 years now. That's crushing, especially right now, because everyone's kind of late or defaulting or something like that.
Correct.
So it's been going pretty well, and that we have a couple specialties. One is like we specialize in borrowers in escrow. So like these mortgage brokers and realtors will call us and say, hey, we just opened escrow. the the borrower doesn't qualify, so we have to move fast. Under 30 days we have to clean up their credit. So that works out pretty well for us. And it's called erase.la, and so those are the core things that I'm working on. And I have a psilocybin company, so that's been pretty good.
So psilocybin, when you talk about that, that's clearly about your mindset.
Sure, it is. Yeah.
So what are the things that you have done with your mindset and understanding? You have an innate understanding, and I've been on a consciousness journey for about 2 years.
Sure.
After kind of being pulled back into the 3D, also being from India, where a lot of people believe a lot of the consciousness started.
Sure.
So
Yeah, so it's really interesting. As I mentioned, like I spent my first 9 years in Houston, and I had an identity crisis at 9, like between 5 and 9 years old, and then like throughout my adolescent years, it was never cool to be Indian. It was very hard to be Indian. You guys eat monkey brains. Like what is this nonsense? It's crazy. So I kind of grew up with just being really shy about being Indian. Like I wasn't like out there saying, "Yo, I'm from India." Like I'm just like it's like whatever. But essentially, now it is. So Indians are trending. We run some of the biggest tech companies in the world. Everybody wants to be Indian by osmosis now, right? Yeah. Everyone wants to meditate. Everyone wants to do yoga. Everybody, like pranayama, which is like breath work. Right. Like everything, like it's just like everyone wants to be Indian now. It's the craziest thing, right? So, and girls, they like Indians now. It's the weirdest shit ever. Women love Indians. Yeah. Like, finally, get hot chicks. Like, dude, this is wild. It's really crazy.
You're like light skin.
Like, dude,
light skin took off.
By the way, like everyone thinks I'm black. I don't even look Indian. People think I'm every girl thinks I'm black, a half black or something. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. But yeah, so it's awesome. But essentially, I'm really involved in it. My parents are, they're like partially practicing Hindu. So I kind of grew up around that, which was really great. I think it was a really good place for me, good foundation to have, And so I practice TM, Transcendental Meditation. I've been trained by TM Center here in Santa Monica. Denny, who's been training TM for 47 years, he was the right hand to the Maharishi. And so TM's been great for me. Psilocybin has helped me tremendously. The biggest thing that I got out of psilocybin was, outside all the, the brain chemistry stuff like neuroplasticity, spawning neurogenesis, which is creating brain cells while you're on it. Like, hey, by the way, there's nothing out there that does that. So you can drink alcohol, you can smoke weed, you can do whatever you want, but all of it kills brain cells, except for psilocybin. It's spawning neurogenesis, which is technically creating brain cells, right? So it's really, really insane that it's so good for you. Neural network connections, it's like learning complex math, all this stuff. I'm talking about microdosing, not full-blown journeys. What it has helped me with, and I don't drink alcohol, and I have quit like 3-4 years ago. I never drank much anyways, but what the psilocybin has helped me with, like number one, is it actually taught me how to be present again. So I had a problem with that. Now, everyone around me, everyone's kind of floating with between or surfing between the regret of the past and the fear of the future. So no one's kind of right in the middle, and you can't really practice real gratitude until you're actually here right now, right? So I'm probably one of the most present people you'll ever meet. I'm right here, right now. Yeah. And I'm so present that I remember every word everyone says. My memory is really crazy. I remember every single word everyone says, and I'll remind you of shit that you've said, and you'll freak out. And everyone, like friends around me are, always freaked out about that. Now, I had the worst memory before psilocybin, and it was primarily because I was never present. I was never here. So it's helped me so much there. Now, I don't do any meditations on psilocybin or anything like that, but what I have discovered recently, and I've done 4 of these, my friend owns a company called Better You Care, and it's a ketamine therapy, ketamine treatment company, and they do telemedicine around the country, and they have a doctor prescribed system. It's a lozenge you swish around your mouth for 12 minutes. It's ingested through your cheeks, and you spit the whole thing out, and then you go into a journey for about an hour, and that's been really transformative for me, really profound. And it is, I feel that there's like certain degrees of like therapy and all this. A lot of people see therapists and And I feel like that's like one level of therapy. You see a therapist, you talk to them, you give them your thoughts, they spit out their interpretations of what's going on in your head, and there could be there's a lot of room for misinterpretation because, language barrier.
And they're not inside
They're
your
not
head.
in your head, right?
Yeah.
So then the other level, I feel, and this is just an opinion, I feel like the advanced level, and I do feel that you need to talk to people, like mentors especially, but this other level of inner work is you actually interpreting your own thoughts, and like the K therapy is so profound that I am fully disassociated with my body and the parts of my brain that have the alarm bells, and it's just like a theater, and I'm just processing thought, driving on the Autobahn about 150 miles per hour, processing about 2 or 3 months worth of thought versus like, taking 2 or 3 months worth to process that in stop and go environment, which is what we are. It's like driving around West Hollywood or driving an Autobahn with no cars. That's the analogy. And at no point I didn't feel impaired or high or any of that. You just have, you're in full control and fully aware, and you're just, you set your intentions before the therapy, so subconsciously you already know where to go with your thoughts. So it's been profound. I just went through a pretty rough breakup, and I had a K therapy right after, and it really had some incredible results after it, and really good stuff for me to do. I end up with a to-do list after. So between the psilocybin and K therapy, I've done 4 of K therapies, and I might do them maybe like once every couple months or something. I don't do them frequently, but between that and the psilocybin, I think it's really, psychedelics are a huge tool today to be able to get you closer to yourself, to be able to do inner work, because essentially it's all inside, right? And so we like all this exogenous stuff is just it's all peripheral, right? Like none of it brings any fulfillment to us, really. I mean, for me, like the real fulfillment for me is really to be able to help someone win, help someone get to the next stage, next phase, whatever it is, to help them win. I don't really get a lot of fulfillment for doing shit for myself, and I realized that pretty early. So I'm on this path of like really trying to help people get to the next stage, and that's where the true fulfillment really comes from, and it is all inside here,
That's great, man. It's one of the things that I, after some things happen in life, my mother passing and a lot of other things happening, and understanding that a lot of us are self-focused. And I think you do need to take care of yourself, and you do need to handle your business, but we need to protect each other. We need to take care of each other. And my mom would say, if you can help, you do help. And so
Sure.
I wear this right here. It says we protect each other.
Sure.
It's one of the things that again, as I've seen you and seen you move around, it's one of the things that I kind of liked is there's not a lot of fanfare. There's all of the conversation about who Ted is, but then it's actually seeing how you move and what it really is. And it's an understanding of how can I create a space where people can find their best selves and they can engage with people who are on that same path. And I believe that if we as a people can focus on helping others, you'll find that you will magically start helping yourself.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we have to add. So one of my core mantras is, one is like do what you say you'll do, right? That's it's like a basic one, and I judge everyone on that. I do.
Yep.
People say they're gonna do something, they don't do it. You got a couple more strikes to go, and then you're done. Like I just can't be around people that are a lot. They don't have a spine, backbone like that. Yeah, you got to be impeccable with your word. That's one. The second thing is, essentially, like a really, really big thing is, I feel that people are just. Damn, I lost my train of thought. You might have to cut this part. We're live though, right? Yeah. I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about impeccable with their word and where you are with people and where are we going with that?
Yeah. Fuck, I lost my train of thought.
It's all good. It's all good. So basically where I really want to go to is, as we're talking about kind of you being present and you on your consciousness journey. And now, where are we? Where are we going? How do we affect the world in a positive way? How do you affect your circle? And how does your circle start to radiate out?
Yeah, so I met you actually through some really good friends of mine, like close friends. I think it was Joe that brought you.
Yep.
Joe's a really dear friend of mine, great guy. So I have this group of guys, 80 guys in LA that are, like very like-minded, just like us, highly accomplished, no egos, no one is arrogant, right? And extremely coachable. Everyone just wants to learn, and everybody is, on the same, very similar path. Now, LA is kind of a weird place. A lot of people have difficulty finding quality people here, But for some reason, I'm super lucky. I just, I attract the best people, and I end up with the best guys. So I just want to create, a community of people that, all the good people stick together, kind of, and it's infectious. We all grow together, and we a lot of shared resources, stuff like that. I think that it's kind of good, and I want to empower people to do the same thing. So I have these dinners once a week where I force myself and 12 guys, right? And there's one lady sometimes, and she's a powerhouse, Allegra. And Cher comes sometimes too, which is really random. But
Yeah.
Cher, it's so great. But I have these people, and every one of them, they all want to feel like they have a community. I want to be around like-minded people. They want to feel, they want to feel like they belong to a tribe. Like we need a tribe. Now I want to empower people to do the same thing, and I have a lot of women doing the same thing too now. After they, we inspire them, and they have these girls' nights as well, and these dinners with, they want to be around people that are bigger than them. So I force everyone to be the smallest person in the room. Like I do that once a week, but it's important to do that all the time. That's how we grow. We need to be around people that we want to be like. Yep. We want to people, and it gets a little bit crazier because the 5 people that you're around the most, you're actually becoming them.
Yes.
So you have to be okay with them and catalog these people, make sure that they are, they have qualities that you want to adopt, because if you don't, then you need to spend your time in a better place. But I want to empower people to build these communities, to be around people that are bigger than them, to have these like systematic, dinners and, have these, engagements with people. That way, they're kind of forced to be around energy that's stronger. And then that's how it starts. Good people bring, better people, and, you're doing something intentionally that's going to force you to grow, and that's how it changes. It's all about mindset, but you can't accomplish the mindset that you want without changing like every part of your life,
Yeah.
It starts with respect, and, the biggest problem with a lot of people is they don't have the self-love. The self-love means you're not hanging around people, you're not spending your time with people that aren't better than you at anything. They got to be better than you at things that you want to be better at in life, right? That's critical. That's self-love.
Yes.
Because time is your only currency, and if you're burning your currency, then you got no self-love. You got to take care of yourselves physically. Wellness, fitness, spirituality. You don't respect yourself, no one else is going to respect you. It has to start with that. You want to change your mindset, you got to do all of that. It's a lot.
It's a lot, but what I say, I started this a couple years ago with my kids. We started reading the Bible and reading it from a place of non-religion,
Sure.
but from spirituality.
Yeah.
And if you read it that way, you start to see that it's really like a user guide.
Yeah.
It's a user guide for yourself. And we all like think about, I need to preach to people. I
Sure.
need to tell them how they're going to do. But you really read it, it's like, these are the things that I need to work on.
Right.
And so everything that you're talking about, it really resonates.
Yeah, this Hindu guy, I don't read the Bible, but I will tell you what the Bible says. The Bible says, show me your 5 friends, and I'll show you you.
Yeah.
It says it in some other words, but that's basically, that's one of the things I've been trying to drill into people. It's like a 5 or 7 friends or whatever it is. Show me your friends, I'll show you who you are. Yeah. That's how that's how I meet, when I meet women too. It's like, I'm really interested in their friends. I want to know who their best friends are,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what they're capable of doing based on their friends.
I dig it. So what's next? What's next for Ted?
Yeah, so finishing the first book by end of Q1, so we're hoping to release somewhere around then. And then we'll have a speaking tour, and then do some stages, and then some podcasts, and then I'll have another book out by Q4. And the second book is a microdosing guide. I'm going to teach you how to dose out of any situation, basically, essentially.
Okay.
By the way, that's not my Instagram. That's my old one. So,
There
that's
we go.
old IG. Yeah. Okay, it's all good. Yeah. So I basically want to mentor people into, like if they're willing to try psilocybin, I think that I really want to kind of guide them, and this book is going to show them how to dose out of any situation. Like you could be in a spiral, you could be in a breakup, you lost your job, you could, like anything, like a loved one died or anything like that, Psilocybin, a lot of times when they dose it incorrectly, it ends up spiraling them, making it worse or potentially amplifying. But there's techniques of how to dose out of situations and basically, open yourself up, remove the blockers and be receptive to what's going on in a different
To the change that's necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's really where I'm probably gonna to close is one thing that you said is you have to be open to constant change. And what I have seen personally, what I have found, and a lot of people, I think, they have problems with it as you start to change. They say, what's going on with you? And they want to assign the old you to what's happening in the present. And so you have these conversations. You can't communicate with me the way that I was a year ago. I'm not in that same place. And so it's a big deal, I think, that we're comfortable with being uncomfortable on a regular basis.
Right. So, I mean, just one quick thing on that. So you said people need to be open and receptive to change. So that's kind of like talking to a therapist. That's one end of the spectrum, right? Talking to a therapist, having them interpret your thoughts. Where I am with this is I am chasing change. I am hunting change. I am looking for change, right? I am looking for change all the time, and I am pushing it. And the change is comprised of two things. Mm-hmm. The closing of doors and opening of doors. That's all change is, right? So what needs to happen with change is doors need to be closed, and doors need to be opened. You cannot close certain doors you cannot open certain doors until certain doors are closed. Yep. That is a fact, and that's how it is. So when in life, there are people called closers, right? Mm-hmm. And we think the closers are the ones that are closing deals and making the money, right? The reality of it is the closers are the ones that are really, really good at closing doors fast. Yeah. Look at the exits that happen. These guys sell companies in 2 years, gone. What have they done? They've closed the doors, right? They've closed it, and these are the people that are really, really good at it. So, I think when you break down change, fundamentally, it is clearly about closing doors. Because when you close the doors, the new ones open, right?
That's exactly.
So you got to be able to close doors fast. And, it's systematic, and sometimes it's super painful. I had a really tough time closing a door recently, but I did, and I had to do it, for these new doors to be able to be opened. So
I love it, man. So where do people find Ted on social if they want to know what's going on?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram. It's Ted Skilla with 2 L's, and you guys probably put it on the screen.
There we go.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Ted, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks.
I look
Thanks
forward
for having me.
to what's next, and I look forward to people being able to hear you. I mean, we got to see you for a second at Albert's Driven event, and you've got some amazing information for people to really learn and grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Built to win. We all are.